Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the JCI Kootenay's All Candidates Forum. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on today is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Ktunaxa First Nation. JCI Kootenay is proud to host this provincial election All Candidates Forum. JCI Kootenay is a nonpartisan, membership-based, nonprofit organization comprised of members 18 to 40 who live and work in the East Kootenay. Their members believe in the importance of creating positive change within our communities and the world. Some of the notable projects they are involved with are the Santa Claus Parade, the Bike Swap, World Cleanup Day. For more information, visit jcikootenay.com. JCI Kootenay, don't you know, has recently been named JCI Canada's Chapter of the Year, and I am honored. I am certainly honored to work with them as moderator at this event. Barry Coulter. So, thank you. We will only be able to get through a small portion of the hundreds of questions that have been submitted. They have all been vetted to remove bias, ensure they are appropriate, and to cover as broad a range of views and issues that matter to you, the voters in this region. We ask that you please remain quiet and respectful of those speaking. Please wait until a person is done talking to applaud. Hecklers will be removed. Please give the candidates the respect and the courtesy they deserve. This is democracy. It is alive and well. To keep the forum moving, there will be a set of lights located at the front. When the green light is on, the candidate has the majority of time to speak. When the amber light comes on, the candidate has 20 seconds left to speak. When the red light comes on, that's the end of the allotted time. You have 5 more seconds or the end of your sentence, whichever comes first. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, from the BC Green Party, Kerry Wall. Pete Davis of the BC Conservative Party. Sam Atwall of the BC New Democratic Party. And running as an independent, Tom Shapitka. Our first section of this Q&A evening involves 4 general questions that each candidate will answer. These questions have been culled from all those submitted and represent those main serious issues that affect not just the people in the Kootenays, but the people in the province. Ms. Wall, we will start with you, if you please. Oh, I do beg your pardon. I messed up already. Ms. Wall, you have 3 minutes to introduce yourself. 3 minutes. 4 minutes are the I had one job. 4 minutes at the end. 4 minutes, we're doing 4. Ms. Wall, please. Pass the mic to her.
There we go.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Kisuk Kwakwayat. Good evening. It's great to be here with everybody. Thanks for coming. Love being in Cranbrook on the unceded territory of the Ktunaxa Nation, Amakas Ktunaxa. I'm Kerry Wall, and I want to be your MLA. There is a chance for the Green Party in Kootenay Rockies this election, and what an opportunity it is. Not only is this a better democracy with Greens, with more accountability, but also a chance to take the climate emergency seriously. It's also an opportunity to elect our first woman representative in over 20 years. Since 2001, this riding has had an MLA from the right-wing party of the province. And voters have been telling me they would prefer to have someone who was able to represent a much broader swath of the electorate. The Green Party is that choice for more and more people because of our commitments to fiscal responsibility, environmental conservation, and social programs. A moment ago, I mentioned a better democracy and taking climate change seriously because those are the key issues that set me apart from these other three men. If elections are not actually about democracy and preparing for the future, then I don't know what we're even doing. Last week, I talked with an NDP supporter who told me she is not feeling excited about her party in this election. I asked her how come, and she said, well, being an NDP supporter is who I am, like it's kind of my identity. And I said, so what's going on? And she said, the NDP has broken my heart, and they have broken their promises. And now I feel really torn about who to vote for. On the other side, I have somebody working on my campaign who was a conservative voter for decades. Decades. He's in his 70s now, and he told me that in his 50s, he decided that from now on, he was going to be a lifelong learner, and he decided he was going to base his decisions on evidence, no longer on popular opinion or dogma. And I really respect these two people and what they put forward about really thinking about their choice and making a thoughtful, reflective choice. I would like to take a minute to highlight some of my accomplishments. Many of you don't know who I am. I raised a wonderful son who will be 28 next month. He is a business graduate and he works in wholesale in the bike industry. I have a master's degree in leadership from Royal Roads University and certificates from the Justice Institute in negotiation and third-party mediation. I ran for the BC Greens in 2020, but since that election, I've been very busy with my family. In 2021, my dad was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and I moved in with him, looked after him for months, helped him die, managed his estate, and then earlier this year, my mom went into hospital. She was there for months. Her partner died, and then she died, and then her mom died a few weeks later, my grandma. So I no longer have those folks to worry about. My son has grown up, and I would love to spend my time dedicated to caring about people in the Kootenay Rockies. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, BC Conservatives.
Thank you. I'm going to use this stand here. So I can see you and see what I need to talk about. Well, hello everybody. My name is Pete Davis, and I am honored to stand before you as the Conservative candidate for Kootenay Rockies. Just wanted to tell you guys just a little bit about myself and why I'm running in this election. I was born in Revelstoke, moved to Cranbrook when I was just 8 months old. My mom made that brave decision to leave a difficult situation, one where my father was struggling with addictions. She packed us up, my brother and I, and moved us to Cranbrook. We lived in community housing for most of my upbringing. And I can tell you guys, growing up on welfare has really given me the firsthand experience of the challenges that many people are facing today. You know, it's troubling to see how many families are now at their breaking point, struggling to pay their bills, buy food, and keep a roof over their heads. You know, everybody deserves the three basics, and that is food, shelter, and energy. And yet under this current government, too many are finding themselves with the impossible situation where they can't afford all of those. And you know what, I just don't think that's right. I graduated here at Mount Baker Secondary in 2000. And I got to tell you guys, this school, I got 2 kids that just graduated there. That school hasn't changed in 24 years. I think we need to advocate for a new school in Cranbrook. I really think that that's something important. In 2002, I married my wonderful wife, Heather, and together we raised 4 incredible children. Yes, 4. You guys, it's expensive, but you know what? It's worth everything in the world. I love my kids, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Bought our first house here in Cranbrook in 2004 for just $105,000. Can you believe that? You wouldn't be able to do that nowadays, I can tell you that much. Started my first business called Davis Financial Group, focusing on commercial finance, and I built my first house at Park Royal when I was 26. Like I say, guys, you know, growing up on welfare really motivated me to work hard to ensure that my kids would never ever see that. And you know, I'm proud of what I've done for my kids and my family, but I think there's so much I can do for this community. For the past 7 years, I've been involved in federal politics with the Conservative Party of Canada, served on our local electoral district association. I've learned a great deal in my time there as vice president and then president in the last election. And I think there's a lot of things I've learned there that'll help me be your next MLA. So why am I into politics? Well, it's pretty simple. You just can't sit and just watch. I mean, there's so many different government policies now that affect your family and your whole life. And I've always felt called to serve my community, and I think that now it's time. At one point, actually, I considered to be an RCMP officer. That, of course, didn't happen. But you know what? My desire is just growing more and more just to serve my community, and there's so much that we can do. Watching our province spiral into debt while the quality of life declines for so many is so disheartening. And I know, I just can't sit back and watch this any longer. When the opportunity to run for the Conservative Party came up, I knew it was time to serve. We face a crisis in multiple fronts, guys. Rising costs of living, high taxes, deteriorating healthcare, homelessness, the opioid crisis, and struggles with our natural resource sector. It's clear we need a new approach. We need fresh ideas. We need innovative ideas. Friends, it's time for something new. It's time for the BC Conservative Party to take the reins in British Columbia. Together we can build a better future for our families where everyone has that opportunity to thrive. So I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. And friends, you know what? It's time for change. I'm looking forward to tonight. Thank you.
Sam Atwall, BC NDP.
I will also use this fancy cool lectern. Kisikukit, thank you everyone for coming out. I am Sam, and I'm running for the BC NDP for MLA for Kootenay Rockies. I'm a resident of Cranbrook. Previously lived in Sparwood for 6 years. I've been on Sparwood City Council for the last 2, and yes, the commute is not awesome, but it is something that I find is important. I think in that experience has shown me that some of the big problems that we're seeing need to be solved in Victoria. My professional background includes working at EVR, which is formerly Tech, in the Elk Valley. I worked on technology and innovation projects, and those are the kind of things that help create improvements in the mine to work with newer pieces of technology. I was a plant operator before that, up north in Fort Mac. I was also the union safety lead up there. I was self-employed. My first business I started when I was 20 years old. If you can believe that, that feels like it was forever ago, but it feels like yesterday as well. I worked automotive industry, did industrial sales. I've been obviously in mining and then project development as well. Everything I've done so far has included collaboration with many different groups and creating strong solutions together to improve those areas. And I think that's the biggest key and biggest takeaway. We're stronger together, and that effort should never stop. All the experiences is what I want to bring to the government as your MLA. I come from a family of miners and hard workers. My father-in-law worked in forestry and mining down here in the valley. My brother-in-laws were down here as well. They're up north now. My dad worked in mining in northern Manitoba, where I was born and raised. My wife is out here. She is an educator. She's been in the education system for most of her career, principal in Sparwood, and has moved into the district office here in Cranbrook. She's born and raised here in the East Kootenays, and we have always wanted to strive to create stronger communities for our youth. My decision to run provincially is similar to why I ran for council. I want to see our area flourish and grow for our future generations. My wife and I have 2 amazing daughters who are 7 and 9. I won't call them out because they always get embarrassed and they're like, Dad. We expect them to leave home and pursue higher education at some point. It may be here, it may be somewhere else, but I think that's a big piece. We want them to be able to come back. We want them to be able to find work, have a place to live, and raise their families and kids here. My kids are fourth generation in the Kootenays now, and we have deep roots here. We hunt, we fish, we enjoy the outdoors, and I want to continue that with my kids and teach them about responsible gun ownership and conservation. Those things can live hand in hand in a positive direction. We've seen a lot of strong investment in the communities. You know, I've talked to a lot of folks about what their needs are. You know, I've worked out of Elkford. We've lived in Sparwood. Our family's from Fernie. My in-laws live in South Country full-time, and now we're here in Cranbrook. There's not a community in this area that I don't have a personal connection with. And I think that matters, because that representation matters. You want to know your areas. You want to know your people in those places as well. I've worked with those municipalities and those governments hand in hand in my time there. And you know, those are the type of things that, making those personal connections, I'll continue using that and do that as your MLA. We're helping families day in, day out. We've seen what the BC NDP have been providing forward. We're hiring more doctors, we're training more doctors and nurses, we're tackling the housing costs, and we're building one of the strongest economies in Canada. And we're starting to see good results, and that's why I'm part of this team. We believe in BC's potential, and we're laser focused on making your life better. There's more to do, and I feel like I'm the best person suited as your MLA. Thank you.
Independent Tom Shapitka.
Kisa Kukut, welcome. I'm happy to be speaking here today on the traditional territory of the Tanaha First Nation and the riding of Kootenay Rockies. Folks, we are standing at a critical juncture. In a dramatic twist, British Columbia's official opposition imploded just weeks ago, just before this crucial election. And in the chaos, we were left with a failing NDP government and a BC Conservative Party that is just 1 year old, an unproven leader, and candidates who lack the experience we need. However, despite all of this confusion, there is hope and there is opportunity. I stand before you tonight offering not just promises, but a real path forward, a path that we can bring a win-win for every single one of you in this room. Because let me be clear, this is not about partisan politics. It's not about picking green, orange, or blue. It's all about you. This election is your voice, your power, and your future. It's about making sure you have a voice that is unquestionably accountable to this community and no one else. Kootenay Rockies is one of 5 ridings out of 93 that has an incumbent MLA as an independent. This is critical to understand. These ridings have been handpicked by every political analyst to hold the balance of power after the election. All of a sudden, folks, this riding actually matters. I've successfully taken down the NDP in this riding in the last 2 elections, and I plan to do it a 3rd time. No offense, Sam. Any other vote splits to secure an NDP victory. As an independent, I answer to no party. I answer to no political master, and the only leader that I serve is you. Let me tell you this, independents get things done, and the last legislature is a proof of that. Look at former Finance Minister Selina Robinson, and yes, even John Rustad, who now leads the BC Conservatives. A year ago, he was an independent. Independents have an impact. I have the same voting power, the same privileges as any other MLA, and there's a few other perks that I'll describe later on. Tonight, folks, this is a job interview. You are the employer. I'm asking you to rehire me as your faithful public servant. So here's my resume. I'm married with 3 great children and 2 grandchildren. I was born and raised in Cranbrook. The Kootenay life runs deep into my veins. I'm proud of my 5 generations of family in this region, proud of the resilience, the hard work, and the community spirit that defines who we all are. I've taken those exact same values with me into every role I've ever held before I was a 2-term MLA, whether it was the time I spent as a Cranbrook City Councillor, Director for the RDK, Director for the Hospital Board, on numerous committees I sat on, including doctor recruitment, public safety, homelessness and wellness, and much more. You see, being an MLA is not an entry-level position, and anyone seeking this job needs to be properly prepared. Among many motivators to be re-elected is to expand our oncology and renal services at our regional hospital, including radiation treatment. We are very close, and we can't afford to quit now. Tonight, as you hear candidates' answers, envision yourself working with that person, because that person you select tonight may be your partner for the next 4 years. Trust is everything, and is something I think I've earned and my staff have earned along the way. I think that trust is earned, like I said, and I think, quite honestly, it's something that you can't take for granted. Now it's time I put the trust in you. This provincial election is going to be close. Every politician and pundit is saying the people of Kootenay Rockies will have the power to tip the scales. A vote for me isn't just a vote against a failing NDP government. It's a vote for true representation, for balance, and for meaningful change. This is our moment. Let's seize it together. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you all. Now, as mentioned, we have arrived at the Q&A portion of the evening. First off, we have 4 questions that have been vetted and compiled that cover the issues of great importance to everyone in the province and in this region. Every candidate gets 3 minutes to answer each question, starting with Ms. Wall. Question number 1. By the way, if a candidate wishes to hear the question again, just put up your hand when it's your turn. British Columbians continue to face the worsening effects of climate change, such as wildfires, extreme heat, drought, and floods. Does your party commit to meeting emission reduction targets? What is your plan with the current carbon tax implementation and implementation in the future?
I'm going to use my right and ask for you to read that again, please.
British Columbians continue to face the worsening effects of climate change, such as wildfires, extreme heat, drought, and floods. Does your party commit to meeting emission reduction targets? What is your plan with the current carbon tax implementation and implementation in the future?
Thank you. Oh, well, we're staying sitting. Hi. I didn't get a chance to let you know that I work for Interior Health. I've been with them since 2010, working on healthy public policy and planning with local governments around the Kootenays. Last year, I had the honor of a special assignment to study and work on a medical health officer report about climate change and health. We know that climate change is the #1 risk to people's health globally, and we take it very seriously at the Health Authority. I was a contributing author on that report. It's called Climate Change and Health for Interior Health Region. It's available online, and this is something I know a lot about. I'm well in alignment with the BC Greens in this matter. So our party, the BC Greens, definitely commits to meeting emissions targets. Some of the things that we have in our platform that I want to draw your attention to is that the science is absolutely clear on climate change. There's no doubt about that. In healthcare, we look at evidence, we look at research, we look at data, and so does the Green Party. And the climate change emergency is upon us. If you've ever been looking at the news in the last couple days, Hurricane Milton heading for the coast of Florida is going to be a bit of a disaster. And if we're not in the direct line of fire, like Akam last year, for example, or Jasper was less than 3 months ago, we will be getting climate change refugees from places like the southern United States, because we're going to be lucky enough here that we're going to be able to manage for a while. We're not going to have hurricanes or rising sea levels. So we definitely at the Green Party, we want to stop subsidizing the big polluters, and that will help bring more money into government coffers, first of all. We know the fossil fuel industry is the #1 polluter, and we want to commit to clean energy solutions. We already have the know-how and technology. We simply need political will to enable these solutions to get started. In states as big as Texas and California, they are really powering clean energy. People are easily using tidal, wind, and solar energy to power their homes. As for the carbon tax, We all know that carbon pricing is not a significant driver of the cost of living, no matter what others here might tell you. Just look at the United States. Cost of living has been rising there dramatically, and they do not have a carbon tax. Studies show that over 80% of British Columbians receive money back from the carbon tax that they pay. And the proof we have is that carbon tax has only contributed to 0.15% of inflation. Carbon pricing is one of the most effective and least expensive ways to reduce emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Sure, you can repeat the question.
British Columbians continue to face the worsening effects of climate change, such as wildfires, extreme heat, drought, and floods. Does your party commit to meeting emission reduction targets? What is your plan with the current carbon tax implementation and implementation in the future?
So, I'm going to talk about a couple things that I think are a crisis. First of all, I want to say that Conservatives do not believe, or we believe in climate change. Nobody has ever said that we don't. We just believe in the ways that are different to deal with climate change. One of the things that we believe that we need to do is use technology, because taxing people into poverty is not working. It is not the answer. And we need to get rid of the carbon tax. It needs to go. It is causing so much pain for people and families and businesses, and it's the extra cost is not worth what is going on. And let me tell you guys what the real crisis is. We have a crisis in every area right now in British Columbia. We have a crisis in healthcare. We have a crisis in housing. We have a crisis in taxation. Decriminalization is a huge issue. We've got a crisis in affordability. We've got a crisis in crime. I don't believe that climate change is the hugest crisis that we are facing today. It is something that we need to deal with, but it doesn't need to consume our lives and the money of the people that are in our community. It's just not fair. So what we need to do, of course, is as we're working forward, pushing what we call industry, which is going to give us revenue for our province, which is going to get people out of the problem that they're in right now where they can't afford to live, is we need to make sure that we're being proper with that. So when we're pushing industry and an economy, we need to make sure that we are doing it in an environment friendly way. Let's talk about for mining, for instance. If we're going to do mining, there's something that we can do to make sure that we clean up our mess when we're done. We need to make sure that we're doing this in a responsible way where it's good for everybody. Same as forestry. We have a lot of trees here, guys, that we could be cutting. But you know what? While we're out there doing the cutting, we could also be cleaning up the fuel that is out there that is causing a lot of these fires. If we're just smart with what we're doing and we start thinking about it with a common sense way, we can start making change in these different areas without taxing people into poverty. That's the last thing that we need is more taxes. We need less taxes. We need less government control. And we need to be able to do things for ourselves as Conservatives to make sure that we're making money, we're taking in money for our riding, for our province, so that we can take that money and spend it in other places where we can start building houses, we can start building schools, we can invest in our healthcare system. These are the things that are crises that need to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Mr. Atwal.
I'll take a reread of the question, please.
British Columbians continue to face the worsening effects of climate change, such as wildfires, extreme heat, drought, and floods. Does your party commit to meeting emission reduction targets? What is your plan with the current tax implementation and implementation in the future?
Thank you. I love how the question is just so long and has different parts to it, but we're going to answer it. That's the big thing. British Columbians are seeing firsthand the threat of climate change. And step one for us is believing climate science and that things are changing. Us expecting and seeing the worst fire seasons on record 2 years in a row is enough evidence for us to say we got to do something about this. And that's where we're standing and going on that. We've increased the funding for fire service, for firefighters, in the 4 specific areas. BC wildfires is increased in fire Servicing, because there's more fires. It's not hard to figure that one out, and it's something we got to concentrate on. We're looking at fuel management. We've done prescribed burns here with ACCM and really use those types of services and traditional ways that are effective. We know that the climate crisis is impacting people's lives, and at the end of the day, it costs our economy billions of dollars. We just saw what happened in Jasper this past year. That economic cost for that is over $800 million for rebuild costs alone. So we know that a cost is associated with the actual issue. And we're taking action to fight those things, and what we're doing, and we're taking better care of the places that we love, and we're building a clean economy with good paying jobs. I work at the coal mines. Everything we're doing up there is transitioning into cleaner ways of actual ore mining. And that's the important piece. We want to have it be better. We want to work with our Indigenous partners. We want to make sure that everything that we're doing is in a cleaner economy. And there are jobs there. There is a way for us to transition to this in a positive way. For what we're looking at for emissions targets, yes, we're bringing in an emissions cap. We want to make sure that we're hitting those emissions targets. And we're helping with that transition as well with what we have as far as services that we have. So if you look at vehicles that we are running as a province, incentivizing programs, that we're looking at those as well. And the program that we have built is Clean BC. And it's one of the most ambitious climate plans on the continent. And it's working. And we're working on reducing those emissions. We're looking at, what was the other one? The other one was the carbon tax piece?
Tax implementation.
Tax implementation. When we look at the carbon tax federal issue, we have committed to saying if the federal government scraps the carbon tax, we're on board. We're taking away the personal cost for the carbon tax and taking that and making sure that it makes sense for us. But if we go ahead and say, and we have to understand what's provincial, what's federal. We have a system in place where we're taking the funding that we have and really making sure that we're spending it on local British Columbians and not sending it to the feds, and making sure that it stays local as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Atwall.
All right. Climate change is real. We got to do our best to mitigate it the best way we can. Sam talks about Cost BC. The NDP have not met one emission target in the last 8 years. This is a failure. We need to be better than that. But what we can't do is we can't handcuff our industries in global competitiveness. Our export markets, like Sam talks about, the metallurgical coal mines, that is an export that we send over to other countries like China and India, and it's steel-making coal to electrify our economy. Those industries are now being handcuffed because the unfairness of this rising carbon tax. We are not getting bang for our buck here, and our industries are suffering for it. So what happens to that? So once we don't allow those export markets to get out to foreign buyers, that demand then goes to other countries that don't have the same environmental, social, and governance standards. This is called carbon leakage. This goes to jurisdictions such as Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, the Congo, places where they're sticking 12-year-old kids down rabbit-hole mine shafts. We do it probably better than anyone, arguably better than anyone in the world. Our environmental, social, and governance, I said, is class number one. So why are we chastising ourselves and sending that demand to some other countries that don't do it as good as us? That is a real problem. Wildfires. Wildfires, we got to do best to mitigate wildfires. That's a huge carbon release, and that's something we can do proactively instead of what this government is doing is reactively. We need to get in touch with our First Nation communities and look at some of those traditional methods of prescribed burning. We've done a whole bunch here already. Thank goodness we did some up at the airport here a couple of years ago, or that airport would have been gone. So we need to encourage those type of traditional values. Emission caps. Sam talked about emission caps. Those emission caps, once again, are killing our oil and gas sector. This is LNG, liquefied natural gas, that's going to China, that is reducing those emitters in China and India off of thermal coal, which has got about 100% more carbon emissions released than natural gas. We need to get people off of thermal coal in those countries. And we've got it. We've got it here. We've got the 4th largest reserve anywhere in the world is right here in British Columbia, and we're not using it. These carbon emission caps are killing us, and so is the carbon tax. We are competing against countries like Western Australia, who have $5, I believe, or $0 a carbon emissions or carbon tax, and we just can't. We can't sit and we can't be left, hung out to dry here. So we need to eliminate the carbon tax, and we need to bring better regulatory fiscal constraints to our economy.
Thanks, Tom. Mr. Davis, if you would start answering question number 2. Will you work towards advocating and making minimum nurse-to-patient ratios in our province? What actions will you take to ensure the retention and recruitment of healthcare professionals? Do you have a plan to assist with funding the expansion of the East Kootenay Regional Hospital in Cranbrook?
Thank you. Healthcare. This is a great one. This one's actually really exciting for me. For the ratios, yes, I think that it is a good idea. The issue we're having right now, though, is that we are really low on nurses and doctors. We need more. We need more people. We need more people in BC. We've got this healthcare is a huge issue. So let me tell you guys a little bit about our healthcare system and our plan. It's called Patients First. This is a universal healthcare system that is going to allow private and public services in it. The way that this is going to help us is that we're going to be able to, for instance, if you on a list and you need to get a surgery for your wrist, and an opportunity comes up in a private place, you can actually take that money, that universal healthcare money, the money actually follows the patient, and you go to the other place and you get that stuff done. So now you're being covered still under universal healthcare, but you're getting this. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about too is something that's really exciting. I've been talking to a couple of the doctors from the Doctors Association in BC here, and they've got some great ideas that we can do with our new healthcare system, Patients First. So, if you guys know what patient assistants are, right now in BC, patients assistants can actually go to the college here and take their course. But what the government has done is they've said, well, you guys can only work for interior health. You can't go work anywhere else if you want to take this course. So what we can actually do is those patients, physician assistants can actually work with doctors in their practice, and the practice is actually a private business, right? But it's covered under universal health care. So we can work with the doctors to be able to take in more patients. Like right now, we have 5,000 people in Kootenay Rockies that do not have a family doctor. We've got over 1 million people in BC that don't have a doctor. This is a crisis. And if we can do this and enable these doctors to start taking in more patients because they have these physician assistants working with them, this is going to alleviate the amount of people that are going to the ER every single time to go to get something because they stubbed their toe or they did something that they don't need to be at the ER for. They need to go see their doctor. So guys, it's so exciting. I mean, we've got an ER in Elkford that has been closed for 3 years. But you know what? We have a way to be able to get the people to be able to man these different places. We also have people that are in urban areas. They're called personal care paramedics. And they're sitting in these areas. They don't even have full-time work. But these people could actually be going out under these practices and seeing other people in their homes and doing different visits that way. So now all of a sudden, we've got everything covered. It's super exciting, guys. There's hope for our healthcare system.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Barry, I will take the question again, please.
Will you work towards advocating and making minimum nurse-to-patient ratios in our province? What actions will you take to ensure the retention and recruitment of healthcare professionals? Do you have a plan to assist with funding the expansion of the East Kootenay Regional Hospital in Cranbrook?
Thank you so much. First question, easy answer, yes to nurse-patient ratios. We have worked with the BC Nurses Union to build these nurse-patient ratios, and the max we have is 4-1. And that is an ask from the nurses to make sure we have excellent patient care. We have signed on all candidates from everybody in our party on nurse-to-patient ratios. This is important. We want to make sure that if you're in the hospital and you're being seen by nurses, that they're adequately, not only are they taken care of, but their patient load is manageable. We need to start taking care of our nurses better as well. For expanding the hospital, we are on board. We actually have approved funding for Tower 2 and approved funding for renal oncology to be part of that hospital build. That funding is approved, it's in the bank, it's ready to go, and that's my fear. Our worry is that if we're looking at funding cuts, they always look at us first. We don't see it in Vancouver. We don't see it in Surrey. We have the funding in place with the BC NDP currently, and that's what we want to see continue. We want to see the hospital expand. We have 145% capacity. I don't know about you. My math says 100% is full. So here we are. We're making sure that we have Tower 2 approved, built, ready to go, and pushing through that. You know, we're looking at this American-style healthcare system. It doesn't work in America. Why are we trying to make it work here? It just makes no sense to me. We're training more doctors than ever before. We're training hundreds of doctors. We've added 128 spaces at UBC Medical School. We're building a new medical school to get doctors in. We have over 400,000 people that are being connected to family doctors in the last 2 years alone. We're looking at if you're on a wait list for a doctor, and our family, we're on a wait list for a doctor as well, for a family doctor. We're going to have everybody work that wait list by the end of 2025. And that's the projection that we're seeing. And that makes me feel amazing. This is a party that's actually taking action. We're actually looking at making working lives for nurses and doctors better. We're building more spaces, and we're making things work. We put a lot of work into this, and we're actually seeing success come out of that. We're seeing growth. We're seeing those builds. And that's what we want to continue on. You know, we're looking at doctors treating patients and, you know, the physician assistants, something that we're really pushing as well, because they can do charting, they can manage patient bed flow, and doctors and nurses are in short supply across the country, but we have the most recruitment across this country here in BC. And we're seeing those changes and those effects really come forward. And we have plans for those too. You know, I'm making sure that we have unified provincial healthcare access and those resources. So if you have knee surgery, you're getting referred out to your physio. Physio has a report that goes back to your doctor so that streamlines and makes things better so we can actually have people in patient care, not having to go back to doctor for everything, but actually work within the network of care. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shapika.
Thanks, Barry. I'm happy to announce my daughter is in her first year of nursing right now. Give her a hand, yeah. We need them. We need them, folks. Sam talks to his failures. They say that he's making things work, and yet the nurses are screaming. I've had meetings with the BCNU. They are screaming to bring these the nurse ratios 4-1 because nurses are, quite honestly, they're burnt out. They are fed up, and they're moving. They're moving, right? They're leaving. They're leaving our area. I look at things like recruitment. It's an important question because right now our accreditation process is absolutely brutal. You'd think Canada was a different country and all the different provinces were different countries. We have RCAs like residential care aides, LPNs, RNs, those type of health professionals that are working in Alberta for 20, 30 years, and they come to BC to slide in and take advantage of some of our beauty around that we have around us, and it takes months, it takes money, it takes going down to Vancouver to get accredited, and they just say, we've had enough, and they're not going to do it. Something that's really important as well, it's called the Provincial the Provincial Rural Retention Initiative, the PRRI. So for those that don't know, this is an incentive to retain health professionals like nurses to come to Cranbrook, and it's an $8,000 a year bonus. That's what you get. The only problem is our regional hospital and Kimberley don't get it. The nurses here are fed up, the dietitianary type people, even janitorial. These are the people that would be eligible for the PRRI. Trail gets it. I don't know why Trail gets it. Maybe because there's a finance minister that lives over there. That's absolutely terrible. They're a sister city to us as far as healthcare concerns are concerned. We have about the same caseloads and the same kind of volumes, and yet Trail gets the PRRI. They're able to retain those nurses, and yet we don't get it here in Cranbrook. Fort St. John's got it, similar population, but we don't get it here. That's an absolute embarrassment. We need to bring the PRRI back to Cranbrook, that's for sure. Expanding the hospital. Sam says there's money in the bank. I would like to ask Sam if there's money in the bank to include a radiation treatment. The master plan is going on right now at the RDEK. I've been screaming and fighting and working with a guy named David Wilkes, who's the chair of the hospital board, the mayor of Sparwood, trying to get that master plan to include a linear accelerator, which is the machine that treats you for radiation treatment. It includes a large 3-foot bunker. It's it has to repel radiation, so it's like 3-foot thick concrete. If that master plan does not include radiation treatment, we'll never see it here ever. That's something I'm fighting for, and that's actually one of the main reasons I'm running for re-election as ML.
Thank you. Carrie Wall.
So the healthcare system must refocus to keeping people well in the first place. Taking a prevention approach to wellness is not only the most compassionate, we don't want to see our people get sick, but also it's by far the most fiscally responsible approach. Paying for prevention is always loads cheaper than paying for illness after the fact. I know a great deal about the drivers of good health, what we call the social determinants of health, and the kind of approach and policy that can dramatically improve population health. That's my job that I do when I'm not a politician. But so that's my career, and my expertise is legit. But I want to be clear that when I talk about BC Green Party proposals to streamline the healthcare system and reduce bureaucracy, that I'm speaking as a political candidate only and not as an employee of Interior Health. So, advocating for minimum nurse-to-patient ratios is brilliant, of course. I think our work should always be guided by evidence and by the expertise of the people who are doing it. The Nurses Union has long called for ratios, and this makes total sense. Of course, we need to also fund the expansion of the East Kootenay Regional Hospital, and these are both tied to options for physician and healthcare recruitment, which was another part of the question. If we have better ratios, better working conditions, and more up-to-date facilities for our healthcare workers to work in, they will stay with us longer. I've spoken to many people, including a young man in the lobby this evening who was telling me about his partner who's a nurse working under really difficult conditions at East Kootenay Regional Hospital right now. We know that if conditions were better, recruitment would be easier. So yeah, we want to focus on prevention and patient attachment. The thing is, we have lots of doctors and we have lots of nurses. We have a real problem in the system getting them attached together. BC has the most number of doctors per capita in the country. Actually, we're tied for first with New Brunswick. So we have all these doctors, but we're not really managing the situation properly. And I would propose that we need to really reorient the healthcare system with the health authorities. We have 7 health authorities in this province. I don't know if you all know that. 5 of them are regional health authorities. We have the First Nations Health Authority, and we have the Provincial Health Services Authority, which is like administration and research. This is like a whole host of big middle bureaucracy that the BC Greens think is unnecessary and ties up a ton of money. Another one of our proposals for healthcare reform is that we think that the top managers and CAOs in healthcare should not be making more than 5 times what the lowest paid worker makes. They make a lot of money. We would save millions if we did that and can have better care here at the East Kootenay Regional Hospital and around Kootenay Rockies. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Antwall, if you please. Question number 3. What is your plan to improve housing affordability? Also, what is your plan and thoughts about the present homelessness situation in our province and current available offerings and support?
Awesome. I think, BC's a great place to live, but we know the housing's too expensive. We're looking at delivering new home ownership opportunities by expanding BC Builds, and that was to include rentals, and then moving forward, affordable home ownership opportunities. Some of the things that we're actually working on to make houses more affordable and kind of come out quicker, we're fast-tracking BC's factory home construction for quicker delivery at lower cost to middle-class families. This is a logical step. It helps cut down a lot of that red tape for construction for, more single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes. Factory-built construction is going to play a critical role in how we're solving this housing crisis, and that's delivering immediate results. We're working with municipalities, private developers, nonprofits, and unions to drive home construction, and know that solving this housing crisis is an all hands on deck type situation. No one person or one group is going to solve this anytime soon. We're looking at doubling construction apprenticeships training so that BC has a supply of Red Seal certified workers that are going to be needed to actually build these tens of thousands of homes that we need every single year. We're opening the door for first-time home buyers by reducing the upfront costs of buying a home. And under the new program, homeowners will pay 60% of the unit's price initially, and the remaining 40% will only be due when they sell or after 25 years and their equity in their home has grown. So it's actually getting people into those houses on a regular basis. For too long, we've kind of seen the ability of developers and single source builders, we've waited too long. We have no more availability for that. So, when we look at what we've done in Sparwood, we've taken those affordable home construction pieces through BC Housing and put it through the Family Society for actually housing those things. Those are the kind of construction pieces we want to see. We're trying to concentrate on building seniors housing. There's a trial house being built through BC Housing as well in Elkford, 25 units, independent living facilities, and making sure that those seniors feel comfortable in what they're living. If they want to downsize, that's a new option, opening up another house for a younger family to move into if they choose. In Fernie, knowing that there's a resort-specific town and the resort community needs housing for that, we're building specific housing through BC Builds in that to make sure housing is affordable in different avenues for different areas and not just saying, this is cookie cutter build, this is what's happening, make it work. That's not how we want to live these lives anymore. Some people want to rent, some people want to own. We're opening avenues for every single person in every single demographic to get into housing. Thank you.
It was quite interesting. I had, me and Sam were at the school the other day at Kootenay Orchards. And it wasn't. It was a group that came into my office the other day. I've been around a little bit. But there was a group of kids that came into my office, my campaign office, and one of the questions was from one of the grade sixers, so this is probably a 12 or 13-year-old, said, I don't think I'll ever have a house, and he kind of laughed. And this is real. I mean, the thought of home ownership is absolutely gone for a whole generation. The prices of the average house in Vancouver have gone to about $2 million on average. Rents have gone up about $6,000 a year on average across the province. That's just completely unacceptable. Building supply, I mean, that is the obvious answer, but it gets a little bit more complicated. When I sat in an opposition against the NDP, they attacked the demand side of housing. Speculation tax, trying to disincentivize people to buying houses. Not sure how that works. I guess you just leave more on the market. We need to build more supply. That's first and foremost. So how do we do that? We incentivize municipalities, regional districts. We streamline the permitting process. It's funny, because I believe the NDP are coming out with a streamlined approach to fast track between different ministries, but it's the same NDP that put all the bureaucracy there in the first place. Our public service has gone about 141,000 people. It's costing us about $17 to $20 billion a year for this added bureaucracy. And now the NDP have to peel back and say, well, let's streamline it. There's just too many, there's just too many silos in government to get the permitting done. It just seems like a thing that we don't want to keep going down this hole. Sam also mentioned the senior facility in Elkford, 25 units. Each one of those units is coming in at around $700,000 a unit. Sam talks about BC Builds. This is a $2 billion injection into building, but there's what's affordable? That has to be the first thing. What is an affordable home? Something that's affordable for you might not be affordable for me. So we have to get a definition. Low cost, below market, sure, I can go with that. But we're throwing this term affordable housing out there like it means it's available to everybody. It's not. When you're paying $4,500 a month for rent in Vancouver, I dare say hardly anybody in this room could afford something like that. We have to get on our housing, ALR land. Let's free up some of the ALR land and put a secondary use on those large. You got 1,000 acres of land and you can only put 1 or 2 houses on it. I mean, it makes no sense for generational transition. Anyways, I'm out of time, but housing is a huge deal.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wall.
Could you please repeat the question, Barry?
What is your plan to improve housing affordability? Also, what is your plan and thoughts about the present homelessness situation in our province and current available offerings and support?
Thank you. So I've worked on poverty reduction planning since 2013 around the Kootenays with many municipalities in my job with Interior Health, and most specifically with the city of Cranbrook. I coordinated, got the funding for, managed the whole project basically to create the City of Cranbrook and RDEK poverty reduction strategy. And that's been a real guiding document that we worked on for a long time to get there, in partnership, of course, with the city. And then we've been moving that work forward with the Social Planning Society. So I know a great deal about housing from the municipal standpoint. Poverty reduction and homelessness have all been part of my work that I've been involved in very, very deeply in the East Kootenay. But I'm also, until just last year, I was a renter, and I just turned 53 last week. So I've been a renter into my 50s. I'm aware of what it means to be a renter. I was rent-evicted in Fernie in 2021. If you don't know what that means, it means your landlord kicks you out because they say they need to renovate. I lived in a perfectly good apartment. And then I was evicted again. That was 2016. Sorry, I was rent-evicted in 2016. Then 4 years later, in 2021, I got evicted because my apartment sold, the new apartment sold. Anyway, I'm an owner now. But the bottom line is that everybody, no matter if you're a renter or an owner, you need housing. Housing is a cornerstone for health and wellness. It's absolutely the bottom line. It intersects with so many other issues that we either talk about here tonight or we talk about around our kitchen tables. You can't have mental health without housing. You can't actively look at solving the substance use and addiction crisis if you don't have housing. We can't even face climate change if we don't have housing. Housing, the situation of it is I just said that. It's the cornerstone for all these other issues. So my plan to improve housing affordability, one of the things that the BC Greens has talked about is that housing is a fundamental human right. Housing costs are simply too high and incomes are too low. We have to bring those two together. We want to protect renters with vacancy control. If you don't know what that means, vacancy control means when you leave a unit, like if I'm paying $1,000 a month and I decide to move out of my unit, my landlord currently could put that unit up to $2,000 or $3,000 a month if he wants and rent it to the next renter for whatever amount he or she would like to. And so vacancy control would really help that. The province also needs to really directly fund municipalities to manage homelessness in a way that works for communities. BC Housing, as a middle organization, is another one of those bulky bureaucratic mechanisms that I know has been very difficult to work with locally, not just in Cranbrook, but for many municipalities.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, thank you.
Yes, we have a housing crisis in BC, for sure. I mean, building costs have gone up 30 to 40% since Sam's government taken over. Sorry, Sam. But you know what? And we need to triple the amount of houses that we build in BC for the next 10 years just to reach demand. That's a big number. It's a big issue. And we don't have the money to do it. That's the problem. The other problem that we have, though, is that we don't have the workers. We need to start looking at our own immigration as well and getting the right people into BC that can help build these houses for us. Because if we don't have anybody to build them, we're not going to have any houses. We need to work with municipalities, of course, as well, and start helping them out with infrastructure, like helping them with sewer and water. You know, if you can't get things in the ground, you can't get things built up top, and we need to start helping our municipalities. And that's one thing that we want to start doing as the Conservative Party. The costs. I mean, we need to get rid of Clean BC, and we need to get rid of the step code. It's costing $30,000 to $80,000 more just to build a house. We need to get back to just building houses and getting people into places. I mean, this whole thing about a heat pump by 2030, are you kidding me? We don't even have the infrastructure for the power for that. I mean, that's just another thing that just is ridiculous. We actually, the Conservative Party, we are coming out with the largest tax rebate for renters and homeowners in BC history. This will remove $3,000 a month, per month on your income taxes that you can write against your income tax. That's $36,000 a year that we're trying to just help people be able to afford where they live. And that's for renters and mortgage holders, just so you guys know. So that's good for everybody. Another thing we need to do is we need to start relying on our private sector to build houses. The government should not be controlling housing. We need to start relying on the people that are good at their jobs, the people that have construction companies that want to get out and do some work. We need to get rid of the permits. We need to make sure that we're doing one permit, one project, getting people out and making sure that they can start doing the jobs and actually start hitting those nails with hammers. I mean, the red tape and the bureaucracy that we have now with this government is just ridiculous. It takes so much time, 2 or 3 years to even get a permit. We need to get down to like 6 months or 3 months to get a permit and get stuff done so we can get people into houses. Homelessness. What I'm going to say about homelessness, you guys, is we need to start giving away free drugs. We need to get people off the streets and off the drugs. Decriminalization needs to go. And that is a huge issue why we have the homeless issues that we have with people in the bigger cities and in Cranbrook here. Those people need our help. We need to get them into a place where they can get some recovery. We need to stop giving them drugs and get them off the streets because they need it. They're not supposed to be out there. They're not supposed to be on the streets and in those awful, dirty situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Atwell, please. Question? Pardon me. What is your plan to improve housing affordability? Also, what is your plan and thoughts about the present homelessness situation in our province? Are we all done? Yes, right.
I'll be well prepped for that one.
I'm just having a ball up here. Tom, if you please. Question number 4. What is your stance and plan in regards to the decriminalization and prescribed safer drug supply? What is your plan with drug rehabilitation services and safe injection sites?
Great question. So hopefully I don't get too teary-eyed on this one because it hits all of us. I think there's probably not a single person in this room that this hasn't affected in some way, shape, or form. The NDP government asked for an exemption from Health Canada to pilot project decriminalization plan here in the province. That decriminalization plan came with conditions. It was encouraged by the RCMP, healthcare professionals, everyone across the province. But those conditions were to hammer down the 4 pillars of recovery. Harm reduction, obviously, with decriminalization, but also needed proper prevention measures in place, proper treatment in place, and proper enforcement in place. That didn't happen. I wrote a letter to the editor on January 15th, 2023, 2 weeks before decriminalization came in on January 31st. What I said in that letter was, "Are we ready?" That was the title. This wasn't against harm reduction. That's one of the pillars of recovery. But it was against, are we ready on the other pillars of recovery to support something like decriminalization, like treatment, prevention, and enforcement? I questioned it, and I wrote it, and I got criticized for it. Not only by the NDP, not only by the media, but also people in my party. I stand by it then, I stand by it now. We need to eliminate the decriminalization project. Stigma is a big part of any kind of type of recovery, and I think that was probably the intention of this. But stigma also affects innocent people, children in our playgrounds, use in public spaces. That is not anything for any child to go through or watch. I'm afraid for our children. I'm afraid of some of the use that's on the streets, and it needs to be done in a compassionate way. We talk about involuntary treatment for those with mental health and addiction issues, somebody that's at harm to themselves or harm to others. That may be something, well, it is something I support only as a last measure, but let's look at the voluntary measures that we need. Let's look at putting proper treatment in place. Let's look at putting proper prevention measures and educating our children on the harms of drugs. And also, of course, enforcement. We got to put teeth back into the RCMP to do their job. The NDP, their soft on crime policies, is absolutely taking away those enforcement measures that RCMP officers need. We never did have, it was always decriminalized. The RCMP were never arresting people for small quantities of drugs, but it did give them that actual tool to hammer down and remove somebody that was a harm to the society. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wall?
Could you read the question, please?
What is your stance and plan in regards to the decriminalization and prescribed safer drug supply? What is your plan with drug rehabilitation services and safe injection sites?
Thank you. So this ongoing toxic drug crisis is a public health emergency. It was first declared in April 2016. That's over 8 years ago. That is a long time to have an emergency. I remember at the time working at Interior Health, and the medical health officers got a lot of new resources. We did some reorganization within the health authority, and we said, how are we going to tackle this issue? And we thought maybe in a few years we'll get it licked. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And it's not because of the lack of medical evidence or because of the lack of qualified and caring professionals. It's really to do with the lack of political will to follow the science, follow experts, and do what the data is telling us. Experts are those healthcare providers, drug users, and the people who care for them, service providers, housing providers, mental health people, professionals, and people involved in homelessness outreach often. As we know, these issues are overlapping. They're interrelated. However, I do not want to conflate them. One doesn't necessarily cause the other. Not all homeless people are on drugs. So we do at the BC Greens have a strong stance and a plan for safer drugs. We again say follow the evidence. The evidence shows that decriminalization is the way to go, and we would commit to allocating annual funding for drug checking. Drug checking really works to keep people safe and alive. And we want to collaborate with local partners, which is mostly municipalities, and the federal government to pursue decriminalization while expanding access to safe use. These are the things that are shown to save lives. When we talk about a medical health emergency, a public health emergency, it's because people are dying, and they're not just people. They're our neighbors, they're our community members, and they're our families. We need to do what is best to help save them. We need more mental health supports and more housing. Obviously, all evidence points in this direction. The first thing also that government can do is to bring awareness to the whole province that drug use is a medical issue. It is not a criminal issue. However, drugs are provided, illicit toxic drugs out on the street are provided by criminals. People who sell drugs are criminals. People who use drugs are people with mental health and or substance use disorders. We need to treat them separately, and we need to treat them well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
I'm going to stand for this one. So like I said, I grew up on welfare. The reason why I was with a single parent is because my dad had addiction issues. So this is a big deal to me as well. Actually, I was just talking to an RCMP member the other day, and they said that, you know what, since decriminalization has actually come in, it's changed the way that they have to police because they can't even do their jobs anymore. I mean, they sit there and watch these vehicles go back and forth to these houses, and they know exactly what's going on. But because the drugs are legal, they can't stop them. They can't stop them and do their job and get those drugs and figure out where these drugs are coming from. So that needs to change. We need to give the RCMP back the power to do their jobs. We need to reverse decriminalization. It needs to be gone. I can tell you guys there is no such thing as safe supply. There is no such thing as safe supply. Drugs are not good. They're bad. And they're putting this stuff in our schools too and teaching our kids that safe supply is okay. And it's not okay. It's awful. I don't know if you guys have seen there's a video I put up on my Facebook about there's a machine in Surrey, and you walk up to this machine and you push a button, and what it does is it gives you whatever you want, a crack pipe, or if you want to smoke cocaine or whatever, and then a video comes up and it shows you how to use it. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're making this so easy for people. This needs to end. We have 7 people a day dying right now from overdose. And it's a huge strain on our healthcare system too. We need to take these injection sites, and one thing I gotta say is, I know Anchorage is right here. This is the school. Why are we right on the edge of the school with a safe injection site? It doesn't make any sense. Like, come on, we need to think about this stuff. These are our kids. These are our children. We need to protect our kids. And that's the first thing. I mean, I'm a dad of 4, and I'm a bear, and I'm going to protect my kids, and I'm going to protect everybody else's kids too. We need to take those sites and we need to turn them into rehabilitation sites. We need to get people in the door. We need to start helping them. We need to start helping them get off the drugs. If they've got mental health issues, we need to help them. Those need to be intake sites, not sites where people are coming and ODing. I heard a month ago someone OD'd right over there by our school. Someone was ODing right there on the sidewalk. This is just awful. You know, this pilot program that BC has started here, you know, it's just, I can't believe it. We need to look at compassionate, involuntary and voluntary care as well. People need help. And what they need, though, is they need help for a long time. This isn't something where you just go in for 30 days and then you're done. We need to give them ongoing care so that they can get back to a real life, because these people don't know what they've been doing. They don't have a clue. They need us to help them rehabilitate back into a job and back into a place to live. And these people need our help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Atwell.
Thank you. You know, we're looking at the toxic drug crisis, and these losses are devastating. You know, these are our family, our friends, and our neighbors, and we've heard it. There's not a person in this room that doesn't have a personal story of somebody that they've known in some way, shape, or form that's been affected by this. And I think that we're building a system that's to save lives. You know, one where everyone has access to treatment when they want it. We've tried it before. If someone doesn't want to go into treatment, it's really hard for them to go into recovery and stay in recovery. They have to want to be there as well. So we're taking action on all fronts to fight this toxic drug crisis and looking at saving lives and getting people treatment they want. So actual action that we've taken. We've opened up to 650 new treatment beds across BC, and we're building more and opening more every single month. We've given police the ability to fight drug traffickers, and we seize those proceeds of crime, and we're putting criminals who deal these deadly drugs behind bars. Regardless of what anybody says, police are still doing police jobs. I don't think I've ever met a cop who said, yeah, I'm just letting drugs go. It's not part of the mandate. It's not the job. Talking to our kids about the dangers of drugs is important. That prevention piece is definitely part of it. Once you make this a taboo thing that we don't talk about, we don't see, paramedics are happy that they're able to respond to people and save their lives, because that's the job they do. They don't want people going and doing drugs in the side of alleys and in the backwoods and passing away and dying and nobody finding them for hours and days. That's not why they do the job. In that I've taken the time, spent time down at Street Angel, I've gone to Anchors, and we've gone to Foundry about what harm reduction means and what it means to this community. And it's huge, it's massive, it's starting to make a difference. And those are the facilities that we need to really push on to get those education pieces out. This is a problem we're seeing across the country and across the world. We're not alone in this, but we do have to make sure that we're taking care of our friends and our family and our neighbors. We need more treatment quality, not less. We need to make sure that we can go these ways and make sure that we're looking at that. When we're looking at like the safe supply piece as well, it's based on evidence. It's based on medical professionals seeing what they're seeing and pushing on that, and is not being distributed. The intent is not to have it in public. We want to make sure we're having safe solutions, creating those detox centers, and making sure people are getting back on their feet and actually being compassionate about what we're doing and for our neighbors. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you all. We've now come to the rapid fire part. For the next half hour or so, we'll be selecting questions at random. Some have been pre-vetted, including some that were submitted this evening in the lobby. We'll start with you. We want to hear as much as we can from everybody, so everyone has 90 seconds to respond. You're all invited to respond. No, with Tom, we'll start this time. We'll come down this way. These questions are a little more local, a little more colorful, maybe a little more personal. Let's begin. This question, how are you going to help make the environment and make life more sustainable? 90 seconds, please.
Sorry, environmental and sustainability?
How are you going to help the environment and make life more sustainable?
That's a good question. We answered it a bit earlier before. We have to make sure that our environmental standards are the highest anywhere in the world. I think we already do that. I think our human rights standards and our safety standards, that's all a part of that environmental, social, and governance is already met. Big asset managers like BlackRock, one of the largest asset managers in the world, their stakeholders want to see that environmental standard. We have great environmental standards here already. How do you make it sustainable? Well, we can't allow carbon leakage to happen to other jurisdictions that don't have those same environmental standards. That means keeping it here, keeping those environmental standards right here in British Columbia to those hardworking, skilled labor people that actually do it better than anywhere else in the world. We can't afford to let that go, because once we let it go, that investment just does not come back again. It's gone. And so they pull their tent pegs out, they're gone. The emission caps that Sam was talking about earlier, we've lost about $2 billion in the oil and gas industry that have just skipped the border, gone over to Alberta. Our corporate tax rate is now 12%. It used to be 8%. Why the heck would you want to stay in British Columbia? So if we want to encourage and keep our environmental standards good here in BC, we need to make sure we're competitive, and we need to train more people to do the jobs that we need. LNG is a prime example. Thank you.
All candidates invited.
Thanks. Environment and sustainability is probably what you think I'm going to be talking lots about as a Green Party politician. Some of you may not realize, though, that the cornerstone that we stand on, the BC Greens, is one of a wellness framework for all that puts people first and collaboration in the legislature. And that's what I propose that we will be doing for better environment and sustainability measures. The environment is something that we need. We don't need the environment doesn't need us. We need it. And as long as we understand that we are dependent on the natural environment, we can reorient our government and our processes with that foundation, putting the environment and the people on a level where if we're not managing the wellness of these systems, we're not doing government properly. The BC Greens are the only party that fully collaborates in the legislature across parties. We don't have backbenchers. Of course, we don't really have enough of us yet to have backbenchers. But we are the hardworking, collaborative party that you will see if you ever watch videos of the legislature working across party lines. We like to work regionally. The BC Greens actually propose that we have a Kootenay caucus, no matter who the MLAs are, that they work together on local and regional issues. Thank you.
So, the environment is very important. We need to have clean water. We need to have a clean environment. I mean, I'm an outdoorsman. I love to go out and enjoy the water and the outdoors and the forests and stuff here. But you know what we need to do is we need to be a good example for the rest of the world. We need to start being an example to them. The best that we can do that is by our LNG, our gas. We've got all these other countries right now that are burning coal for energy. And if we're really thinking about a global climate issue where we need to get rid of these global emissions, then we need to help the other countries and places around us that don't have the clean energy that we have. If we were able to get these, we've got 3 pipelines that are ready to go that are going across BC right now. And once these ones get finished, unfortunately, the permits are supposed to run out next month. So we need to make sure that we get on those. But this is going to create revenue for our province, and it's also going to allow us to be able to start selling to places like India and China, who are all right now they're burning coal. That's what they're doing for energy, and they're not stopping. They're building more coal plants as we speak. We need to get our stuff out to market, get this LNG out, this clean gas, and start setting an example for the rest of the world and say, look, there's ways that we can protect our environment and still have energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry, do you mind the question one more time? Sorry, Barry. Barry.
Pardon me. How are you going to help the environment and make life more sustainable?
I think maybe what I'll do is deviate from talking about stuff that's not regional and bring it back to what we're looking at as far as here in Kootenay Rockies. I think that, working in the Elk Valley and the coal mines, water sustainability is huge. We know that, they've invested $1.2 billion into water quality projects and cleaning water and making sure that being the headwaters and seeing that water that go all the way down into the northern parts of California, we need to keep those standards up. Those are the important pieces, and the company's happy to do it. We're seeing those benefits of actually having a robust water quality management plan that they're developing with us. So those are the standards that we're holding them to, because they're holding themselves to it as well. We have some of the best working environments in some of the dirtiest industries. It's something that we should be celebrating and pushing out and saying, this is what we're doing, and we're doing it so well. There is issues with selenium, ingression, somewhere, in some way, shape, and form. And I think that holding that accountability to that company, who's also holding themselves accountable, is amazing. This is the kind of collaboration that we really need to push on, looking at specifically forest management so that we have wildlife habitat for wildlife to succeed and grow, and that's part of the sustainability piece for me. Thank you.
Mr. Atwal, if you will keep the mic for the next question, sir.
Yes.
The increased tax burden on businesses creates a challenge for businesses when they are so stretched they can no longer reinvest in their operations nor contribute to causes in their communities. What are your ideas to reinvigorate and foster growth of the economy in Kootenay Rockies?
I think the tax burden is something that is one of the issues. We push back on having people actually be employed and housed in locations like Kootenay Rockies. We know that the issue that we have is not solely on that one burden, but finding the quality workers on a regular basis who are struggling to find places to live and stay so that we can have those pieces and parts. Those are the parts that we need to really concentrate on, is making sure that not only are we looking at ways to improve small business owners in expanding their businesses and finding that workforce, because finding a quality worker is hard. Us increasing what we're doing in training, we're doubling what we can for trades apprentices in Kootenay Rockies, at College of the Rockies. And we want to make sure that continues, because having that qualified worker at an apprentice rate is a first step. Having them train up and become journeymen, and if they choose to stay, that worker is staying, that burden is being lessened because you had the lower costs early on, you've trained them up, and if they choose to stay at a higher rate, you're making more money. Helping as many businesses in that way possible are two of the big things. Finding the housing and finding qualified employees so that business can succeed and grow. Thank you.
Mr. Shapika, please.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
The increased tax burden on businesses creates a challenge for businesses when they are so stretched they can no longer reinvest in their operations nor contribute to causes in their communities. What are your ideas to reinvigorate and foster growth of the economy in Kootenay Rockies?
Well, I was a business person for almost 30 years, small business owner. And what I've seen here, when I was talking to a forum just the other day, and I was talking to some business people, and I was saying about tax margins, profit margins. And when I was running business, we were running profit margins anywhere from 10 to 15%, 13 somewhere. That's what we wanted to take home at the end of the day. Some of the local restaurateurs and business owners in town just raised their eyebrows, and they said, "We're lucky if we get 4." We are on such tight margins. The affordability issue is so high that businesses are leaving. They're done. I already mentioned corporate tax rate went up from 8% to 12%. The EHT, the employer health tax, was a scam in my opinion. This was the NDP's sly trick of saying, hey, we're getting rid of MSP premiums. We're just going to slide that tax over to employers of the province, and we're going to charge them the employer health tax. The NDP are taking more money now on employer health tax than they ever did with that MSP, and yet they still have the gall to say the MSP, the elimination of the MSP was the greatest tax cut in BC history. Total lie, total sham. It was shifted to the businesses of British Columbia. They are the backbone of our economy. This government has increased or
Thank you very much. Time. The music plays.
Come on, give me more time.
Thank you. The tax burden on businesses, like Tom said, it's too much, and I definitely agree with him about the MSP premiums. That is a weird little government thing that I don't agree with. I think if government's paying for health care, they need to pay for health care and not put it on small businesses to do their work for them. Same as they download health care, looking after people's health onto municipalities. These are provincial, jurisdictional items, and the province needs to take care of them. Additionally, sick pay. The province mandated that every worker should get 5 sick days per year, which is great. We want to keep germs and viruses out of the workplace. We want people to stay home and get better. Small businesses and businesses in general should not be on the hook to pay for those sick days. Like Tom said, margins are really tight. So those are some ways the province could and should help businesses with the burden of taxation. I mean, it's not directly related to taxation, but in some other manner, I also think the costs related to mental health care, housing, and transportation, and healthcare in general, all of those things, which again are the jurisdiction of the provincial government, the government should be paying for these things to enable businesses to employ people who have transportation to work, who have housing, and who are taken care of. Thank you.
So I'm going to agree with the Green Party. MSP, I agree. It's putting a huge burden on small business. I've talked to a couple small business owners actually in the area that have said that would hurt. The other thing we need to do is cut the carbon tax as soon as possible. That's hurting a lot of businesses. That's a huge number. We talked to a guy actually here in town. He owns a trucking company, and he said with that extra tax, he's paying an extra $4,000 a month in fuel. And that's cutting into their margins. It's pretty hard to make money when you're being taxed the way that this government likes to tax. This government does not trust small business, is what I'm going to tell you guys. The regulations that they put in shows it. They want to be able to control everything that you do. The Conservative Party is going to get rid of regulations. We're going to get business owners back to doing the ability of running their business the way that they actually envisioned it when they first started it. We're going to cut small business tax to 1%, the Conservative Party, and we're going to promise to reduce regulations by 25% in the first year. We're actually going to hire a minister that's just going to be about red tape and reduction. So he's just going to be out. That person is just going to be out there doing that, just going and looking at all these regulations and going, what makes sense, what's redundant, and what's not. And yeah, this government has added 33 taxes since they've come into power in 2017. We need to look at those and go, which ones make sense and which ones need to go. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, if you would keep the mic for the next question. What is your plan? It's kind of a two-parter. What is your plan with the current paid sick days program in BC? And do you believe that the processes for accountability and avoiding abuse need improvement? And if so, how do you plan on doing so?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Two-part question, drawn at random. What is your plan with the current paid 6 days program in BC? Do you believe that the processes for accountability and avoiding abuse need improvement? And if so, how do you plan on doing so?
All right. Yes, I agree that the sick day plan doesn't really make sense. The issue, too, is that you have these people that are working for these businesses, and some of them are just working part-time. They come in and they work for 4 hours, and then they go home. And then the next, and these people are still entitled to these sick days, and they're part-time. It's just putting a huge burden on these businesses. And yes, we don't think that that's right. There's something that we need to do to change that. The burden does not have to be on the small business. Can you kind of repeat the second part?
Do you believe that the processes for accountability and avoiding abuse need improvement? And if so, how do you plan on improving them?
Yes. I think people need to be accountable. Accountability needs to be on a part of the person. It needs to be on whoever's making a choice. I mean, I always tell my kids there's consequences for every decision that you make. It's either good or bad. So you make a good decision, it's a good consequence. You make a bad one, it's bad. I think accountability is a big thing that we need to make sure that we're teaching our kids. It's not about just being able to go out and do what you want, but you need to be accountable for your decisions. I hope that was okay, but that's good. Thanks.
Thank you. Down the line, to you. What is your plan with the current paid sick days program in BC? Do you believe that the processes for accountability and avoiding abuse need improvement? And if so, how do you plan on doing so?
Are you saying avoidance of abuse?
Improving abuse.
Okay.
Improving.
Okay.
Making the abuse better.
Yeah, for that, I think that the takeaway for this is it is harder on small businesses, yes, but at the same time, post-COVID, we've seen what sick days do. If you have a person come in sick to your work and it goes through your whole workforce, it's costing you more overall for losing everybody versus having a person take those sick days. So that's the big piece with that. For avoiding abuse of the system, I think that's a deeper conversation to have with your employer, I think is a big part of that as well. But absenteeism is the first part of, seeing where that situation is. If somebody's uncomfortable with the working situation and they're using sick days for something else, that's usually a personal issue that they're dealing with in some other way, shape, or form. We've all been young where we worked in industries where things were uncomfortable, and those things exist. We're seeing a lot of success with, the 5 sick days as well overall, in having the ability to have people who are generally underemployed still have rights within their working environment to really say that. A lot of colors on that flash. That, we want to make sure everybody who is employed in any way, shape, or form is respected and then also has access to sick days without the fear of losing their jobs. Thank you.
I think I got it. All right. Okay, this is what we talked about earlier. There's it's a death by 1,000 cuts for small business. It's not one tax, it's not two tax, but when you have 33 new or increased taxes that's costing people in British Columbia $20 billion a year, it's a real problem. Paid 6 days, stat holidays. Right now, we are in the middle of having 3 statutory holidays in 6 weeks. And then we layer on increased minimum wage. So not one of those things is killing business, but it's this layering. So yes, no, I don't agree with the paid sick days right now. Whatever happened to free enterprise? Whatever happened to competition, that a business owner respects his employees and his employees respects the employer, and if somebody's sick, you bet, Fred, you can have the day off for sure. Take care, don't bring your sickness over here. This is what we're losing right now. So those unintended consequences that you're talking about, the avoiding abuse of the system, it's happening. I mean, look around, like be honest with one another. Like it is happening right now. It's coming at the cost of business. So we need to get back to those old foundational elements of business in our country, and we need to ensure that we have healthy employer-employee relationships so that everybody can thrive.
As I said earlier, government should be paying for sick days and paying for MSP premiums so that it is not a burden on businesses. So I won't go into that. But I also want to offer that I think that when we make these changes, you know, if government takes that stuff back in-house, that we look at that for a little bit before we make other changes. I think it's really smart to make one change at a time or a couple because that's the scientific method and we want to tweak things getting in the right direction without being too hasty in some ways. The Green Party is known as being progressive, but we're also conservative because we like to follow the science, we like to be very fiscally responsible, and be careful with our choices. So I would say we should learn from local businesses, actually businesses of all kinds from around the province in collaboration about what they think constitutes abuse, if they're experiencing any abuse about sick days, and what they propose to do about it, because businesses are the experts on their businesses, on their functions, and what they think would go well. The Green Party, as I've said before, is really the only party capable of and that truly espouses collaboration within the legislature across parties. We don't care what your party is or who you work for. We think decisions that are made together with experts are the best kind of decisions for all questions. Thanks. Okay.
If you are elected, what is your plan to get Amy Woodland and Mount Baker schools replaced? One destroyed by fire, one old and decrepit.
Thank you. We would love to see a better education system and much better facilities, as I spoke about, with better facilities in the healthcare system, retaining staff, and having safer conditions for working. We know that up-to-date, modern, safe schools are going to be way better places for students and teachers and everybody else who works there. We have a proposal at the BC Green Party about taxing the top few percent of homeowners so that we can get more of that school tax that you pay with your property tax, that school tax, into the education system. The proposal is that people who have homes that are assessed at more than $3 million will pay 0.4% more in their, 0.4% extra towards their school tax. So 96% of homeowners in the province, our homes are worth less than $3 million. That's 96. So it's only the top 4% who have homes more than $3 million. And those people, if they pay a little bit more tax towards schools, that would bring in more than $1 billion a year. And we would be able to upgrade schools like we so desperately need in Kootenay Rockies. Thank you.
Down to Mr. Davis.
Mount Baker School, my alma mater. I graduated in Mount Baker in 1980. My uncle, I know I'm dating myself here, but my uncle was one of the first, I think he was the first graduate of Mount Baker back in 1952. This school is 72 years old. The mobility issues in Mount Baker are absolutely atrocious. When you have a chairlift that goes down from the bottom to the top, and you have somebody that has mobility issues holding up traffic, it's not a pleasant scene. we've got asbestos, we've got lead paint. It's seen its end of life, and so Mount Baker is something I've always had on the #1 priority. The school district, unfortunately, we need education everywhere. They got Isabella Dickens going, but they need to put Mount Baker on top. Amy Woodland, very unfortunate accident, but we lost Muriel Baxter. We got to support Amy Woodland. We need to bring Amy Woodland back. It's separating friends from other friends. We went to Kootenay Orchards, and there was probably in that grade 2 class, I believe it was, grade 2. Anyways, there was probably about a third of them that were from Amy Woodland School. We've got some brothers going to Laurie School. It's a bit of a catastrophe. So we need to bring Amy Woodland back. We need to bring Mount Baker back. I'm all in support of that, and if I've got the job as MLA, I will ensure that happens.
Thank you, Barry. Yeah, I think it's clear to see that the BC NDP are the obvious choice when it comes to education overall. We're funding schools. What we've seen so far is we have 20,000 new student spaces across the province, 58 new K-12 schools, and those projects are fast-growing communities. We're seeing the expansion in Fernie. Fernie's getting a new K-7 school. We're reopening the elementary school in Sparwood that was turned into offices for tech. These are spaces that we need. And that's not going to stop here. We see the need that we have for Baker. It's been here for 70+ years. Where's the work? Where was the advocacy before? These are things that we've seen that need to be changed, that we haven't had the support. We haven't had that seat at the table with the BC NDP in Victoria to really push on these narratives, because the existing system obviously isn't working for getting us funding for that. With Amy Woodland, it definitely needs to be rebuilt, brought back up. It's one of those things that's going to take time, because we're going to have to go through a project of asbestos abatement and what that looks like, but we want to do it right. We have found that with the system we have schools that are going up within 18 months from using these building code things that I was talking about before with the prefab systems. We can have a school up and operating within 18 months, and that's what you get with the BC NDP, is an actual plan, an actual solution, and actually built.
Well, guys, we need to get our house in order. We need to start with the top. It's the same thing. I mean, you can't help anybody if you don't have your own house in order. We have an $8 billion deficit right now in BC. This NDP government has done nothing but spend money like crazy. And you know how they want to get it back? They just want to tax you more. That's not the way. We need revenue. We need to get our natural resource sector going. We need to get money back in our pocket so we can start paying for stuff like schools. I went to this school. I went to Amy Woodland School, actually, from grade 1 till grade 7. And so these schools, actually, it's a part of me. But if we can't help our community, if we don't have revenue, and that's exactly what we need. We need to start creating jobs. We've got 16 mines in BC right now that are permitted or ready to be permitted. That's going to give us 20,000 to 30,000 jobs. It's going to be $800 billion in revenue. That's where we're going to get our money. Once we get that money, we can start paying down our deficit. We can start paying for schools. We can start building houses, infrastructure, hospitals. It's a great thing you can do when you actually have some cash flow. But unfortunately, right now, the NDP government that we have likes to spend it like they're just pushing it out of the back of a truck. They don't even know where it's going. We need to start making some revenue here and stop just saying that we're just going to tax people to make revenue. That's not right. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Well, as you can imagine, these questions have only just scratched the surface for a lot of people, but however, time constraints. And so we are now at closing statements. Every candidate will get 4 minutes to speak on whatever topic they choose. We'll start at the other end of the table this time, please.
All right, well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I want to thank JCI for hosting here tonight. I think it was very successful, and I think we got some messages out to people. As I said at the beginning, this is a job interview. Take a look at the candidates, listen to the answers they've given you. I'm pretty clear on my stance as independent on how that can shape our next government here in British Columbia. There is 5 of 93 candidates that are former MLAs that have put in the hard work, that have built those relationships, and that can come with that, the balance of power. And we know this election is going to be close. And as I've outlined earlier today, the experiences or the job description that I'm given as an independent MLA is no different than a party MLA. It's exactly the same. Same voting rights, same privileges, same resources, all that kind of stuff. But what's important to remember is as independent MLA, I will never prop up the NDP government, ever. That is my #1 job here, is to have a change in government. I will not do that. So you can have your cake and eat it too as an independent to make sure that we have a change in government, but also secure that responsible, proven track record of serving the constituents here in Kootenay Rockies. We can have our cake and eat it too. We have an opportunity. Now, some of the things I heard tonight, I heard $8 billion deficit. No, we're at about $111 deficit right now. It took us 140 years to get to $50 billion deficit here in British Columbia. That doubled, more than doubled, to 103 in 7 years, and it's going to triple to 165 billion by 2027. Unacceptable for the results that we're getting. We're getting 0 results. We've got the worst healthcare system ever. Cancer treatments are at the longest wait times right now. We are sending people to the United States right now to private health care, and yet we can't get that same health care to Alberta within our own country. What is wrong with this picture? The why is because we're forgotten about. If we have the balance of power, we will not be forgotten about. We will matter in this province for once ever, whether we were in government or whether we weren't in government. I can't tell you how many news interviews and media interviews I've had in the last 2 weeks. And why is that? Because they're looking at this riding. This riding will determine what the government will look like. And yes, there will be collaboration with perhaps the Greens, but you will know that your independent MLA will not bow to any party line, no political party leader. You are my boss. You are the ones that I'm going to aspire to, and that is what's going to change this government here going forward. There was a lot of things, some people say, what have you done as an MLA? There was lots of stuff. Access to health care, $30,000. I just had a very sad story where a person that had some treatment that needed to be done in Edmonton got a diagnosis that she only had about a month to live. BC Ambulance was going to charge the family $30,000 to fly that family, who was not well off, to have her last few days here. I fought with the health minister. We got her here. No charge to the family at all. That changed people's lives. Retinal specialists. I fought very hard to bring those retinal specialists back to Cranbrook to secure people that had degenerative eye conditions that cause blindness, literally save people's eyesight. These are just, and I'm almost out of time, there's a whole stuff. Bring in MRI, ICU, those types of things. Putting halt to land decisions that did not have proper consultation. These are things that a hardworking MLA does, and I'm proud and happy to do it again for another 4 years.
Oh, Mr. Atwall, please.
Thank you. I'm going to bust out the lectern again. Again, thank you to the JCI, Cranbrook Chamber, Key City Theatre, Canada's for coming out here, and everyone who came out tonight. I love that we're out here and we're talking about what we're doing and what we have done, and we're looking at the successes. We've done the family benefit bonus is $3,500 plus per year per family. We're looking at affordable childcare that we put out where you have up to $900 of savings per family. We're putting in free lunches for every kid in school. We're looking at senior supplements to help out as well. We're building houses faster than anyone else in this country. We're building 4-to-1 houses in comparison to Ontario. We're building 4 times the houses as Ontario. That's the success of this government that we're currently seeing. Right? We're seeing a lot of questions that came up here, and there's a lot of non-answers or things that aren't regionally important, and we see that all the time. We want to have somebody in here who is going to be able to answer your questions, stick to regional issues as well, and then impart that knowledge and those pieces in Victoria in a clear, concise way, not roundabouts, not talking about issues that are up north and what we're looking at for those issues, things that matter to us locally. These debates are great and a great chance for people to come out and hear all of what we have to offer and help you make that important decision for BC's future. I think tonight's forum has shown that there's a clear choice between a few parties to form our next government. And I think that you can see that we're building a BC where you can afford a good home, whether you rent or own, where you can get healthcare when you need it, and it's growing every single day. You need someone who's in this position who's going to come into it with compassion, willingness to ask questions, and then someone who listens. We see it all day, every day. The nurses are worried. We had hospital closures before. Let's not forget that. 12 years ago, when the BC Liberals were in power, we lost hospitals. Kimberley, Fernie, Sparwood, Elkford. You talk about closures, these are the things that we're reopening. We have a UPCC that we're opening up in Elkford. 2 doctors. We're looking at having a nurse practitioner, care that actually exists instead of having nothing. We're looking at, the question came up of permitting for 3 years. We have a 30-unit affordable housing complex in Sparwood that went from permitting to built in 18 months. I don't know where these cities are doing three-year permits, but I can guarantee you it's not in Kootenay Rockies. Fernie's building, Elkford's building, Spar's building. We have FW Green expansion here as well. These are all things that we need to concentrate on, not pseudo numbers that don't exist in anywhere that we can find. When you need to talk to your MLA, generally it's a time in need of support, and you want someone who's willing to listen without judgment and has compassion. We keep seeing the growth we're having. We have 6,300 new nurses that came on just this past year. That's the most in the country. And I think that the people of Kootenay Rockies, I may just be a dirty coal miner who put on a nice little jacket to come up here and talk, but that hard work don't go away. And I think that's what you're going to get every single day. I think the Kootenay Rockies deserve a candidate who's going to put in that work every single day, put in those hours of work, and make sure that when you have questions, when you need help, you can reach out, and I'm not just going to turn you away. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can earn your vote today. Thank you.
Right on. Almost done. Well, friends, I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I want to thank JCI for putting this on. Thank you guys so much for hosting us. This has been great. Fellow Conservatives, it's crucial that we come together in this election. Allowing an NDP candidate to win because of a vote split would set back our community significantly. We all desire change, and we can't miss this important opportunity. Our riding faces many pressing issues that require immediate attention. We need an MLA in majority government who can implement the changes we need right now. Changes like making life more affordable, fixing our healthcare system, and attracting more doctors and nurses are at the forefront of what I've been hearing from people in Kootenay Rockies. Elkford needs to be reopened, for sure. And our small business owners are struggling under the weight of this NDP taxes and regulations. We must support our seniors and invest in infrastructure and housing. It is time to shift away from misguided policies surrounding safe supply and decriminalization. We need to transform our safe injection sites into recovery intake sites to help people who are in need and get the homeless off the streets. Public safety is also vital. We need to give our police officers back the ability to enforce the law and do the jobs so they can effectively keep our streets safe. Reviving our natural resource sector is key for families and futures, along with effective wildlife and agriculture management. Building a new Mount Baker and actually Amy Woodland. I've got these right in here, and there was a question. That was great. Fort Steele is also an issue that needs our attention. There's also highway safety issues that we're hearing in Fernie and Sparwood that need to be addressed as well. I know many of you can add to this list, and you know what? Whoever is elected here, we have a lot of work to do. So what's the common sense choice? Supporting a candidate from a party ready to form a majority government is our best option. Let's be honest, an independent candidate simply won't have the resources to make change what we so desperately need. We cannot afford another 4 years of this current government or the last 4 years of inaction. We need change now, and if we don't start making change, our children and grandchildren will bear the consequences of our choices. This is very important, you guys. This is a very important election. And the choice is clear. And that choice is the Kootenay Rockies is Pete Davis and the Conservative Party of BC. Together, we can vote for a stronger majority government that prioritizes real change. This is exactly what we need, and we need change now. The power, you guys, is in your hands. Let's stand together and make the right choice for our communities, our riding, and our province. Thank you, guys. It's time for change.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. It's so important that people care about democracy and get involved in these things. Thanks again to the JCI also. I think it's really great that the people have spoken. People have said they care about climate change, housing, homelessness, healthcare, drug use, local economies, environment and sustainability, schools. This is what I've been hearing when I've been door knocking all around the riding. These are the things that are close to my heart. These are the things I've been working on in my career for the last 16 years or more. So I'm very well aligned to tackle these subjects that are so close to your hearts and so clearly important that you would come here and submit these questions. Thanks so much for that. I also offer on the subject of majority governments that people only like majority governments when the party they voted for is in the majority. It's this classic back and forth game that our political system has been stuck in since it started. This tug of war between stealing power, wanting power back. You've got the power, I want the power. This is not good governance. When people are concerned about power, having the majority, getting the majority back, oh, now I like the majority, now I hate the majority, how honestly good can you say that that government is performing? The Green Party would like to see much less of these kind of politics. Politics don't really belong in government. And if we ever want to see that system fundamentally changed, where government serves people, puts people first, and concentrates on the wellness of our families and our environment, then we actually need to change that system itself. If you'd say to yourself, I wish politics was better, I wish government was better, and then you consciously vote for the system that creates the seesaw, back and forth, blaming, finger pointing, then you're basically saying, this system works for me. And so there's an inconsistency there that I have a problem with, which is why I'm with the BC Green Party. We advocate for less spending in government, better services, more collaboration, and actually good governance. We have a whole section in our platform on better democracy, and our platform was the first released. It's fully costed, and I've referred to many of the policies tonight, but you may find it online on the BC Greens website. I encourage you to go take a look. If you've been around for a while, you might think the Green Party is only about environmental things. That is simply not the case. If you care about the kind of representation that you have here in Kootenay Rockies, and you want a representative who is highly knowledgeable, has education and experience negotiating at all levels of government, if you want someone who's approachable, who you think can help you solve the problems you have with the provincial government, if you want somebody who's able to listen and work with the other 92 members of the legislature, I advise you check out my website, my Facebook profile for MLA, and consider voting Green in this very close four-way race where any of us could win, and you deserve the best. Thank you.
Our sincere thank you to all candidates for coming here, for putting your values and your commitments on the line to serve your communities in the interests of public service. There is no higher calling. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the JCIs for putting this on. There's no higher, best event in an election campaign as a candidates forum. It's too bad everybody in the riding couldn't see it, but they can because it has been recorded and it will be online tomorrow via the JCI Kootenay's Facebook page. You can check it out.
Don't forget to vote on October 19th. Maybe a few misprints in the literature in the lobby, but October 19th is the date. See you all there. Thank you all for coming out.